Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Would you be able to record the workshop and then send it to me after? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
I was also on mute.
Yes.
I think it's already recording.
Oh, it is? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
How are you doing?
I am ready for a nap.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, but I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, just home. Yeah.
Yep. I am. This is my last thing for today. So
But that's good. Yay.
is this the first one that y'all done via Zoom?
No, we did the literature review workshop
Okay,
last week. That was the first Zoom workshop.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the recording should save to the local
Cloud?
computer.
Yeah.
It just depends on who has this account on their computer. It'll save.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, because I can't. Can I control recording? Hold on. Okay. Whoever the meeting host is already recording.
Are you not the host on this?
I'm the co-host, but the original,
Okay.
because there's I can see the recording light over in the corner, over in the left corner is on.
So maybe someone's recording it.
Maybe Heather push the record button.
But she's not logged in.
She's not logged in? Oh.
And I think she made you host, so I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I'm the co-host of it, but I didn't start recording, but it was on when I got here.
Okay. Because it is saying recording, so I wonder.
No clue. No clue. Okay. I'll give everyone like a couple of minutes to arrive.
V, I think this is Lauren talking. I think whoever set up the meeting had it on automatic record. So the whole meeting is recording, and whoever set up the meeting and is hosting it, it'll get either saved to the iCloud or to their account. And then that person will have to go in and get the link once it's processed and send the link out if they're planning on doing that. At least that's how my classes have been working this week.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Well, I know I didn't press the button, so.
Is someone else able to record it even if if the host is recording it?
No.
There is a record button for me. I wonder if that would
No,
work.
there's a record button, but it only sends you like the actual host a request for permission to record.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, then it probably will get saved to hers. And then
Probably.
I can get it from her.
Yeah. Just edit all of this out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We have how many? 8.
Yeah. So
all right.
I'll do the first 30 minutes to make a note of how many people are here.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I will go ahead and get started. And as people come in, we'll continue. I'm going to recommend that if you have a question for me, because there are supposed to be quite a few people in this session, put it in the chat, and that way I'll be able to see it. I've got 3 screens going on So I've got one where I can see the chat, one where I can see everyone, and then one where we're going to talk about the document. Okay. And before we get started, I'm going to go run and get my APA 7th manual, and we'll start at 4:05. Alrighty. Okay. Okay. Since it's 4:05, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And today we're talking about APA 7th. This is going to be your introduction to the latest and greatest and newest of all of our lovely APA rules. APA 7th, which came out in October of 2019. And before anyone asks, when will souls switch over to APA 7th? That's usually the question I get most often. And officially, souls will transition in the fall of 2020. However, for those who may start a program, particularly you're starting a master's or doctoral program in the summer of 2020, it doesn't make sense for you to start with APA 6th in the summer and then switch over to APA 7th in the fall. So those who start a program will probably start with APA 7th in the summer, okay? Now, if you don't know me, I'm V, education librarian, resident APA expert. And the way that I usually run workshops is that it's based on the questions that you have, okay? So I expect to see questions in the chat box. And I usually also have a Google Doc that I share with all of the information that we talk about today and probably some information that we won't get to, okay? Which is posted as a bit.ly link in the chat box. All right, so feel free to start putting your questions in, and otherwise I will start talking about APA 7th. Okay. Let's see, share my screen real quick. All right, we have APA 7th. And if nothing else, important information for you to know: my email, my appointment calendar, where I usually post things of importance and for you to remember. Those are the best ways to contact me. Now for APA 7th, and just APA in general, we have quite a few resources available. The ones that I depend on. So when people ask me APA questions and I am not completely sure of the answer, then these are the places where I go. Okay. At Copley Library, we always have copies of the APA publication manuals at the reference desk. Right now, we're dealing with working remotely. So there are online guides that will help you as well. The APA Style Blog is one of my favorite tools ever for APA. Okay. Because after the manual is published, the ongoing conversation from the APA experts happens on the Style Blog. The 6th edition archive or blog archive still hosted here. So for those of you who are using APA 6th right now and you have questions, this Style Blog is a great place for you to get answers. Okay. This Google custom search will allow you to search for things like how, citing a website. You could type in website here, and it tells you how to do very simple ways, okay? The APA 7th edition blog looks a little bit different. Oh, that's new. They're offering free access to the publication manual. Yay. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna click on that. Let's see what we're talking about here. Temporary free access, instructors and students participating, nonprofit academic institutions affected by campus closures until May 25th, 2020. So if that is the case, I would take advantage of this great opportunity before you need to buy the APA 7th manual. Okay. Now, the other part of the Style Blog, there are what's new in the 7th edition publication manual. On this resources document, I created a nice table here that makes it very explicit what's new in APA 7th and what the change is from APA 6th. We'll go over this in a little bit more detail later on in this workshop. But back to the Style Blog, you still have the same option to search for things that you're interested in. So if you want to know how to cite a website, you type it into the search box and it gives you information about how to do so. Okay. Web page on website references. Easy peasy. Purdue OWL is one of the standards of using any of the writing styles. So APA, MLA, Chicago, Turabian, what have you. They are one of the most authoritative resources outside of the official APA style blog and manual. One of the things that I like about Purdue OWL is that the APA 6 information and archive is still available. And they clearly denote on each page, whether you're looking at APA 6 standard or whether you're looking at APA 7th standard, and the equivalent page that you can find the other editions information, okay? And it's all hyperlinked. For example, if you're looking at APA 6 style for a book and how to cite basic information for a book, you can go to the APA 7th page, and now you can see APA 7th information for the basic format of a book. You can go back to the APA 6. They make it very easy for you. Okay. Any questions thus far? Nope. Okay. The last resource that I'm going to talk about is the APA style website. So like the style blog, this is the official APA product. So the APA style website will link you to the style blog here, but it also gives you other resources about APA style. Okay. One of the reasons I like the APA style website is that it has this lovely style guidelines by topic. So if you look at all of the topics, those frequently asked style and formatting questions are set up right here for you. How to set up a table, how to set up a figure, how to use the singular they, okay? And I would encourage everyone to take the academic writer tutorial for APA 7th. This is a quick walkthrough of some of the changes that are coming with APA 7th, okay? Now it is intended for those who are undergraduate users, but since APA 7th is new to everyone, you're going to be able to learn some good information about how to cite or how to use different styles for your papers, okay? So once you click on the Start Learning here, it gives you the options, okay? Very easy to do. I probably worked through it in about 40 minutes because I wanted to be very clear about whether or not it was going to be a good tutorial or not. But APA style usually produces some really good resources, okay? Okay, question. Does Purdue OWL include info for dissertations and sources other than website, book, journal, article, online film? Let me go back to Purdue OWL. I don't believe so. Unless it's under other print sources. Yeah, you get information on how to cite a dissertation, abstract, or a published or unpublished thesis or dissertation. But it's not giving you a template, you know, for how to write your dissertation. But it can tell you how to cite one, okay? Now, what's new with APA 7th? I pulled out quite a few changes using some different resources. Scribr has a great video. It's about 5-6 minutes long that's linked here. And is on their YouTube channel that lists, I think, 17 changes. And I also went through Purdue OWL 6th edition archive and the 7th edition blog. I went through the APA manual. So I pulled out as many changes as I could, you know, discern. And as most of you who've been in any of my workshops or any of my classes know, that I will keep this document up to date with any changes that I see, and you can always access it at the bit.ly link. So if you want to bookmark that link, do so. Okay. First up, publisher location is no longer required in APA 7th. If you notice through the table, I will have the change, the general name of the change, and either in bold or italics or some way that will emphasize the change from the 6th edition to the 7th edition. So for this example, we used to put, you know, New York as the location and maybe Doubleday as the publisher. Locations are no longer required. This helps make for a more concise reference because in all honesty, no one really cares what location the publisher is in, okay? And plus it was causing confusion because a publishing house could have multiple, you know, offices and no one ever knew which one we were supposed to put. So this solves that issue. The publisher name is important, the location no longer necessary. Okay. Someone say Yahoo. All righty. Multiple authors in an in-text citation. Previously for APA 6, if you had 3 to 5 authors for a resource, then you were expected to name up to 5 authors the first time you use their names in the in-text citation, and then the subsequent citation would say et al, right? First author, et al for everyone else. APA 7th is changing this. Instead of listing up to 5 authors, last names, the first time, now it is more consistent. You will use the first author's name followed by et al from the first instant afterwards. Okay. Another change. Previously, APA 6 only provided guidance for up to 7 authors. Okay. This is not as common in the social and behavioral sciences as it is in some of the hard sciences where you may see 20, 25 people listed on a report or on an article. But now we have guidance for up to 20. Okay. What this looks like is this. So now you have multiple authors. This also helps people to get their adequate credit when we're talking about citations and altmetrics, because if your name is not on the citation, it's very difficult to get credit for that citation. Your name doesn't pop up as much, which is one of the many reasons you see people wanting to be first author or second author, because previously you really only saw maybe the first couple of authors listed on a reference. Okay. And now there's space for more, which is a good thing. Okay. I love the change for DOIs. For those of you who are not familiar, a DOI is a digital object identifier. What that means is like the ISBN for a journal article. Okay. And let me be very clear, not all journal articles have a DOI, but it has become a lot more common since the DOIs were first established in what is it? I think it was 2000. I could be off by a few years. But DOIs are a unique identifier for a particular journal article. And they are a lot more common on scholarly journal articles than they are on, a trade publication. Okay. So previously, the two ways that you could format a DOI in APA 6 was either with this DOI label here and then the number, or you could format it as a URL. And because we are so driven by having our electronic resources, it is actually more convenient for people to format the DOIs as URLs, because that immediately links you to that item. So for example, and this is probably going to go to a broken link. We'll see. This is what happens when you link to a number that doesn't exist. It takes you to the official DOI website, where they try to help you figure out what it is that you were looking for. Okay. But if we were to go up to this one, it has taken me to the article, Subseasonal Experiment, Multimodal Subseasonal Prediction Experiment. Okay. A lot more convenient. And speaking of URLs, the phrase retrieved from APA 6 is no longer necessary unless you have to specify the retrieval date of your resource. So when would you use a retrieval date? If the content of the website or online resource that you are pulling your information from frequently changes. If that is the case, then you need to use a reference and add a retrieval date to that reference. Again, that's for constantly changing content on a static page. Okay. Questions? Okay, I will keep going. Websites. I get so many questions about websites because they're so different. Okay. And they don't all have the same type of information. Some websites have a very clear name, some do not. Some have, blog posts where there may be a different author for each blog post. Some do not. So it can be a little difficult to pull the information for a website. The 6th edition did not include the website name at all in the reference. The 7th edition is trying to make this a bit more clear by requiring the website name if it is possible to find it. Okay. If the page has content that has an individual author, you will use their last name, initials in the citation first. The site name goes here, right after the title of the page and right before the URL. Okay. In that case, Medium is the name of the website where this post, "Laziness Does Not Exist," comes from. For example, if we're looking at this website, we see the title of the post here. We see the author, price, we see the date. So it's done. I see the emblem for Medium here. And you may have to look around on the site in order to know what that M stands for. Oftentimes, site information will be at the bottom. Okay, that's a little tip for you. Next, ebooks. In APA 6, you had to include the format, platform, or device. For instance, the Dracula ebook that was on the Kindle format, you would have to designate that it was Kindle, which version it was, okay? And like the publisher location, no one really cares about which format it's on necessarily. So they got rid of it. Now you just have basic information, author's name, year, title of the book. If it's an audio book, you would include the narrator of the book, the format that it is an audiobook, publisher, and the URL if that is applicable. If it were an ebook, author's name, year, title of the book, the format that is just a general ebook, publisher, URL if applicable. Okay. Yeah. content contributors other than authors. APA 6 was vague about how to give attribution to contributors outside of the traditional, standards. Author, editor, okay? But now we have specific titles for additional content creators, like a podcaster, or maybe someone who creates video content for YouTube. So on pages 314 through 315, and I'm turning to it in my manual as we're speaking. There's a list of specific content creators that are now included. So artist, executive producer is here, the host, how to include an instructor for maybe a webinar, the principal investigator. Okay. So different things. Okay. APA 7th made a huge effort in this edition to emphasize inclusivity and trying to be bias-free. In the APA 6 and previous editions, it was quite vague on what pronouns do we use for these creators of content that we are giving attribution to. And there was an unspoken assumption that we would assume gender based on someone's name, because we don't often know these people personally. And it was usually dominant to men or those who present as male. Okay. The APA 7th clearly states that you are not to assume gender for a content creator. Okay. And the pronouns they, them, and their are officially endorsed as gender neutral pronouns. If you do not know the content creator's gender, personally, either you've known them, you've seen their email signature that says what their pronouns are, then you are to use they, them, their, okay? So instead of the researcher uses SPSS to analyze his data, you would say the researcher uses SPSS to analyze their data. Okay. Let's see. Answering the question here for the link address. I'll post it again in the chat here. Okay. Now, descriptive phrases. So how do we talk about people? How do we talk about groups in general? APA 6 and previous editions provided little to no guidelines on how to do that. APA 7th, in its efforts to be bias-free and more inclusive, advocates and endorses the idea that you should be as specific as possible, be aware of preferred identifiers, and always strive to acknowledge people's humanity, despite what issues you may be talking about. For example, instead of saying the gays, you would say gay men or gay women or gay people. Okay? Specifically, who are you talking to or who are you talking about? Instead of saying drug users, people who use drugs. This puts a person's humanity before their issue. And I know that it adds a few words to your word count. So some of you who are looking to add, you're going to like the descriptive phrases part. But again, putting the humanity before an issue. Instead of drug users, people who use drugs. Acknowledging preferred identifiers. So it is known in many circles that the B in Black is preferred to be capitalized when talking about a specific group. Some people don't know that. You learned something new today. But instead of saying Black women with a lowercase b, as if it is simply a color, the capital B acknowledges a specific culture, group. So preferred identifier example here. Also, the idea of being more specific. So instead of a broad range of people over 65, if you are talking about a specific population, then name the age range of that population. If you only study people in the age range of 65 to 75, say that. Okay. That is being more specific in your descriptions. All right, let me pause for questions. Does anyone have a question thus far? You can either unmute yourself or you can pop it into the chat. Sounds like. Yes. So there's a comment in the chat that says, I assume this is also students with disabilities, students with autism, for example, correct. Okay. That would be a part of the acknowledging people's humanity before their issue, instead of labeling them. So APA, the APA 7th manual, when talking about disadvantaged or underserved. So if you took the example of poor people, okay, So we wouldn't say poor people if we're trying to be bias-free or more respectful of their humanity. We would say people who are impoverished. Yeah, marginalized communities is going to be an interesting one because I've seen many scholars of color use marginalized communities. I have used it in my own research because that has been a preferred way to phrase. So I'm interested to see what it would look like from scholars of color who are used to using this phrase, and it may be our preferred identifier for how to describe these populations that we're a part of, and those who are not. But from what I've read with APA 7th, instead of being broad like marginalized communities, you would describe the issue that that community may be dealing with. So maybe it would be, you know, a redlined or a community who deals with redlined housing policies, if that's what you're talking about. And instead of just saying, you know, a marginalized community, you're being specific about the issue that this community is dealing with in terms of your research. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, I think that they're just trying to push the envelope with people and kind of encourage more of a bias-free, inclusive language within our writing. Because people often write the way that they speak. And if this is how you describe people when you talk about them, then this is how you're going to write about them, right? Oh, which example, the marginalized one or the, okay, the marginalized one. So instead of saying marginalized communities, from what I've read in the APA 7th book, it would be, you would pick out what specific issue you're talking about. You know, if you're talking about, for instance, the red line housing policies, then instead of saying a broad marginalized communities, it's the specific issue that you're discussing in your paper. Even though generally we acknowledge that these communities are suffering with more than just one issue. But APA 7 is trying to push us to be more specific when possible, instead of being more broad. Okay. Women who are Black be more appropriate than Black women then. No, and for that example, I would go back to the one where I was talking about instead of the gays, kind of making them this collective, you know, blob of a group. You're being specific and saying gay men. And which is different from the example we were talking about with drug users and saying people who use drugs. So we're acknowledging their humanity first by saying that they are people who use drugs. It doesn't conceal my humanity by acknowledging that I am a Black woman. So I would say that Black women would still be the preferred, more specific phrase, descriptive phrase to use instead of women who are Black. My Blackness is not a symptom, if that makes sense. No, I think the same would go for undocumented students instead of students who are undocumented. I would use the example of gay men being the descriptive phrase as being more specific than men who are gay. Yeah. Undocumented students, it is not denying their humanity. There's a specific category. And it's not like saying drug users, because then you're putting their issue, which often tends to be a negative issue, before the person. I have a feeling that people are going to end up talking about this at some point on the APA 7th blog, which is where the conversation goes when, after the publication manual has been published, ongoing conversation about how APA 7th is going to handle these issues will be posted to the style blog. It's also one of those things you can submit questions to them. Yeah, I agree with you. Still not sure on that example because the documentation or lack thereof is what gives or doesn't. Status. I could see that. I could see that. But I still think in this case, it leans more towards being specific in the, i.e., gay men example versus the people who use drugs. Because otherwise it would be, students who are freshmen the entire time, or students who are honor students. We'll see how this goes. APA 7 just came out and people were still arguing about APA 6 after 10 years. Job security for me. Okay, let's talk about font choice. We have more options. Yay! Previously, APA 6 said, is Times New Roman 12 or nothing? That's what they said. And now we have more officially endorsed by APA fonts and the correct sizes to use. So Times New Roman 12, Georgia 11, Calibri 11, Arial 11, and Lucidia Sans Code 10 are now officially endorsed. Okay? So no one is married to Times New Roman 12 anymore. Okay, you have more options. A big thing that came with APA 7th is clarity on what a student paper form should look like versus what a professional paper, in that format looks like. It makes it very clear. Okay. And so within the APA manual, you will see the distinctions that have been made. Couple of things, and you'll see from the table that I have here, I pulled out some of the differences for you. The student papers no longer have a running head, just the paper only. And I'm going to pull up an example what that looks like. Just a second. Sample papers here. I'm going to maximize this so that everyone can see. Okay, sample student paper here. And this is coming straight from the manual. It's on page 61. Running head, gone. See this empty space where the running head and the abbreviated title used to be? No longer on the student paper. Page number only. Okay. Also, for those of you who were confused as to how you should format the cover page for a student paper, APA 7th now gives you very clear instructions. Your name, the department that you're in, the course number and name, the professor of record for the course, and then here's a big one that people have been arguing about for umpteen years. What date should we put on the paper? APA 7th now says that you should put the date that the assignment was due on the paper. Okay. So not the date that you finished, although those are often one and the same, but the date that the assignment is due is the date you should put on your cover page for a student paper. Okay. And the running head on the professional paper. Maximize this for y'all. So the label running head, gone, no longer necessary. You would have the abbreviated title and the page number. Okay. Other things that you'll see. They also have information about how you would list one author, two authors, multiple authors for a professional paper, whether or not, or how you should format an author's note. Okay. Those things. Another big one with the student paper is that the abstract is no longer included in a student research paper unless required by the instructor. I'm gonna say that again. APA 7th does not require an abstract for a student paper unless required by the instructor. which means you should ask your professor if they want an abstract or not. Hey, question, does it matter how far down the page you start the title page? That should be in the upper margins. So the margins for an APA style paper are very clear. It's like one inch margins. And if you are using Google Docs, Microsoft Word, any of those kind of official document software, then you see it's about 0.5 down where the title should be. And then usually, let me go back to the student paper. So if I measured that, it looks, what, about 2 inches from the top for the title? It looks about 2 inches from the top to me. But I can verify that and send it to you. I'll add that in. Okay. Heading levels. This is a big one. So heading level 1, heading level 2 have stayed the same. It's heading levels 3 through 5 that have changed. And I noted the changes for you. You can also see them on the sample papers. So level 3, and to back up a little bit, all of the level heading changes were made to increase readability and to help for accessibility purposes. Okay. So we've got changes with bold and using italics. Previously, heading level 3 was indented with a lowercase, and now it is flush to left, so left aligned, bold, italic, and title case. So that is easier to read. Level 4 was indented, italicized, boldface, lowercase, paragraph, with an ending with a period. It is now indented, boldface, and title case. And level 5 was not bold, and now it essentially is bold with title case. Makes it easier. Okay. All right, last couple that I'm going to talk about. So it's hard to believe this, but people have been arguing about whether or not you should have 1 space or 2 after a sentence or ending punctuation. It is now official that it's just 1 space. Okay. The 2 spaces was a holdover from when people used typewriters. So now that we're using electronic documents, 1 space is fine. And if you want to emphasize something, so let's say you want to emphasize a term, or you want to emphasize something in a quote that wasn't emphasized by the original author, you would now use quotation marks instead of italics for linguistic examples. So they in quotation marks instead of they in italics. Okay? Now, There are other things on here, more examples, more links. There's a lot. Okay. There are plenty of things. Oh, I forgot. Table of contents, no longer called table of contents. It is now called the order of pages. Why? I'm not sure, but we'll go with it. Okay. Any other questions? You can unmute yourself or you can post it into chat. Okay. Yay. All right. Well, y'all have this reference. If you have no more questions, then I will let you go about your merry way today. And if you need me, I am working remotely. Email or book an appointment on my calendar. I am still here for you. Currently in my condo, wearing jeans and t-shirts all the time now. Okay, y'all have a great day and I will see you virtually one of these days. Okay. Bye, everyone.